Hello and welcome to the session of GP Ka Cat Funda. Today I have Jijo with me and we'll be looking at how to analyze the mocks and the VRC section. In the previous session, we had talked about how to analyze a paper as a whole. We had introduced the concept of the Aukat score. I hope you remember that. And based on that, now what we want to do is look at each of the three sections, VRC, DILR, and QA, as to how you should be analyzing each of these sections and what you should be doing in the next few weeks so that you're able to do well in this paper. So let's get started, Jijo. Jijo, what do you think is the basic issue that students need to look at as far as VRC is concerned?
I think GP. I think the biggest problem when it comes to the VR section, as opposed to math or for a little bit of DILR. In maths, you would know that okay, if I know this concept, I can easily understand at least some problem
Right.
identification is slightly easier when it comes to maths, but when it
True.
comes to VR section, your score is going up, your score is going down. I think the key issue that many of the students face is not knowing why stuff is happening to them.
Yeah.
Therefore, the way in which they should analyze the mock test becomes that much important. For that matter, way in which they analyze every single reading comprehension passage or a PA question that they solve, the way in which they analyze becomes that much important. GP.
Right. Right. I think that subjectivity or the so-called subjectivity of this section I think is critical, and which is what students need to understand how to handle it. Because as you rightly said, I don't know how to handle question of escalator. I can look at the question and leave it. That flexibility you don't have in verbal, and also you don't have that flexibility to a great extent in DILR. You may think I don't know, let's say tournaments, but most of the tournament sets are fairly easy. So that's a subjectivity which students need to learn to deal with. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So
so,
that's the agenda we have. Yeah, Jijo, please continue.
so sorry. I was talking about these three things. What you want to look at is one is what is your game plan. Second is how to analyze VR section in the cat box to boost scores. And we look at a 4 week action plan. Let's say in this month, what is that you should focus on? So,
Right.
GP, when it comes to the VR section, how do you, from an overall scheme of things, where do you think the students should place VRC as a section?
See, in the overall scheme of things, I would say VARC is probably the most important section, because I have always maintained not only CAT but SAT. In fact, all these are reading exams, unlike a school and college exam, which are writing exams. And if you cannot read well, if you have a problem in comprehension, you'll have a problem in comprehension and reading speed in English. You'll have it the same problem in DILR also, as well as in quant. So that basic comprehension skill runs across. So this is a section which actually forms the base for the entire paper. Okay? So that is the first thing. But if I come to the basic mechanics and say how do I look at this section in isolation, I would say, to me, as far as CAT is concerned, there are two parts of this section of this paper. One is the reading comprehension, and the other is the verbal ability part. Okay. Now theoretically, the split between the two is 2:1, which means 2/3 of the question will be for reading comprehension and 1/3 of the question are verbal. By and large, that's the kind of split which is there. It might go up or down a little, but by and large, this is the kind of ratio we see. Okay? So that is one way to look at this paper. Okay? However, if you go a little deeper and we look at, for example, last year's CAT paper itself, 16 questions from reading comprehension and 8 questions from verbal, right? Okay. But if you look at these 8 questions of verbal, the breakup between the three parts of the paper was, out of these 8 questions, we had para summary, we had para jumbles, and we had the odd statement para jumbles. Okay. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 3-3-2, 3 para summary, 3 para jumbles, and
Correct.
2 odd statements. Okay, and 16 questions from there. So, and second thing is, I want students to understand that para summary is nothing but reading comprehension. The only difference between the reading comprehension passage and the para summary passage is that reading comprehension passage will have 4 paragraphs or 3 paragraphs or 5 paragraphs, while a para summary passage will have only 1 paragraph. That's the only difference. So to me, it's a very short RC. And the kind of question which you see in para summary could easily have been a reading comprehension. So from my point of view, it is not a 2:1 ratio, first of all. It is a 3:1 ratio, or maybe more than that also. Okay? Because if I just look at 19 versus 5, we are talking about almost 4:1. We are talking 19:5, almost 4:1 ratio. If you go to the earlier papers of CAT 15, 16, 17, 18, that would have been closer to 3:1. Okay, but end of the day, to my mind, is this is a reading paper. The one thing you need to focus on is to get your act in terms of reading together. That's the first thing. Okay. Second thing, I want to just add to this part is, because everyone talks a lot about speed. This is not a speed reading paper. Okay. This is not a speed reading paper. This is a reading comprehension paper. Okay. Because while 40 minutes is slightly short to complete the paper, it is not hopefully insufficient. Okay, so we'll probably talk about that a little later. But to me, these are the two things which people need to understand. This is a reading comprehension paper, not a speed reading paper. And secondly, the verbal part is there, which is to your advantage. Make use of it also.
You're right, GP. I think one of the issue that people look at this is to simply focus on the aspect of speed, right? And they just read stuff fast. But the key is that it is about comprehending what you read. Uh, the to give a perspective, this is the 2021 story and a 2020 story.
Yeah.
These are all scale score. So if I kind of look at the 95th percentile, we are looking at getting about 11 questions net correct,
Right.
11 to 12 questions net correct. If you're looking at the 90th percentile, we are looking at close to about 9 questions net correct. And we want to hit the 99th percentile, we are looking at maybe about 14 to 15 questions net correct. That's when you get the high percentile.
Right.
And to look at what GP said, imagine, for example, let's say 9 questions net correct, which means there are 16 questions from reading comprehension and 8 questions from BA. Though now the 3 of that the paragraph summary question is more like a short reading comprehension. If I can imagine, if I can get, let's say, out of these 8, imagine if I can get about 4 questions correct, net correct. That's about 50% of them. So to get net 9 questions correct, I'm looking at about 5 questions net correct from here. So it is not a difficult job to get high percentiles in all the scores that is required to get those high percentile. But the problem usually is of course that people don't have the sense in saying that, look, I don't know. And let me put it this way. I think in terms of focusing on very not so important aspect of the whole thing, which is like simply focusing on speed, rather than looking at comprehension, ability to comprehend diverse topics. You see the passages are the stuff that is going to throw at you is from sort of diverse things. And if you can just manage that, and therefore, like what GP said, this BA is definitely critical important. Not to say, of course, reading comprehension is the majority of the paper. GP.
Yeah. So just to add to this part, what I would straight away say is, in this paper, 90 percentile or 95 is not a challenge at all. If you are clear about what you know how to handle, about what you can handle, and what is it that your comfort levels are. Okay. And then just to add to what you're saying, 4 out of 8 or 5 out of 8, the verbal part is never a challenge. The problem is students get so overawed by reading comprehension, they think it's a reading comprehension paper and forget that part completely. It is extremely important for students to make sure they either leave sufficient time in the end for verbal, or do verbal in the beginning, or find a way of attempting verbal questions. Out of these 8 questions, 3 questions of para summary, most of the students will get 2 right, if not more. The reason I'm saying that this is and here while earlier I said this is in a way the skill required is same as reading comprehension, but to me this is different from reading question or comprehension, because many students have a challenge with a longish passage. 4 paragraphs they get a little confused, 1 paragraph they are able to handle. Okay, so to me, out of those 3, getting 2 right is usually not a challenge, and many students will get 3 out of 3 right. Now, let me assume parachamal students don't understand at all, no issues at all. But odd statement, out of those 2 questions, you definitely get 1 or maybe both right. So getting 4 out of 8 is not a challenge. 5 out of 8 or 6 out of 8 is definitely going to be a little difficult unless you can handle para jumbles well. But even without para jumbles, out of the remaining 5, you'll get 4 right. Okay? So to me, this is important. If you can get these 5 right, the load on you with respect to comprehension comes down significantly, and that is when you'll start doing well in this section. Don't forget that reading comprehension is there, but you have the verbal also. Make sure you get 4 or 5 out of 8 right there. You will be comfortably placed in this paper.
Right. So when we move on to how to analyze the VR section in CAT mock test, I think this is something that we spoke about in the last
Yes.
session.
Mm.
And when I look at a mock score, I think people immediately jump to looking at the solutions, looking at explanation, and simply. I think this is what I've seen, GP, is that people are obsessed with questions. In the sense, they're looking at this question: how can this question be right? How can this option be wrong? Instead of focusing on the most important thing, which is where did I go wrong, or where did I go right? And therefore, the whatever be your target score, I need to understand what my OCAT score is. By that I mean, let's say that if let's say I've got in those 22 questions, 24 questions, right? That we 24 questions. Let's say that I attempted, let's say about 18 questions, right? I let's say that I did not attempt the rest of the question. It will be what, six questions I did not attempt. And out of this 18 questions, let's assume that I got 10 questions correct and let's say 8 questions wrong. And then I've got whatever score that I've got, which is 30 minus 8, which is about 22. That's where I am. Now, the most important thing to understand is that those 6 questions that I left, was it a good decision that I made?
Yes.
Those 8 questions that I got wrong, was it a stupid mistake that I made? Or therefore it is, and these 10 questions that I got correct, will I, is it because of me, or did I do some guesswork here? So to therefore it is important that we redo all the questions without any sort of time limit, or just click on this in your aspiration account. When you look at taken a mock test, when you look at the solution, you will have to click on something to find out what the answer is. The question does not, this thing does not immediately reveal the answer. So we're reading that, well, assuming that then you know that, okay, out of this probably I could have got 3 right. Out of this I probably would have got 4 right. Most of these 10 questions are almost correct. So suddenly you realize that I have got an opportunity to get about 17 question net correct. 17 question net correct is more than actually my target score itself.
Yeah.
So realizing these OCAT score, or realizing what is the gap that I'm looking at, whether it is an execution gap. I think most of the time it's going to be execution gap, whether it's a competence gap, which means let's assume that my test score is, let's say, 22. My retake score, let's say, is 34, but my target is 45. That means that this is an execution gap, which means I could have got this 34, and something I did in the paper was not right. To get here, I need to look at some more stuff. Maybe some aspect of, let's say, paragraph jumble I need to focus on. So doing this analysis, GP, is going to be the absolute crucial. Knowing this score is going to be very crucial. Knowing this will help you understand where you are, where you are, or what are the issues that you're facing, GP.
Yeah. So Jijo, in this slide, I want to talk a bit about the execution gap. Okay, why does this execution gap happen? I think that's the question that students need to ask yourself. And one of the things which I want students to understand is, because I have got a poor score, I will take 5 more papers, my score will not improve. The score will not improve at all, because you keep committing the same stupid mistakes again and again, and in fact, you will solidify that mistake, that stupidity of what is happening in the paper. So one common thing which I hear from many faculty and many students is, I am taking so many papers, but my score is not improving. No, it will not improve till you identify why did this happen. And so to me, the execution gap is the key to understanding where I go. Whether I'm able to increase the competence, take care of the competence gap or not, is immaterial to me. To me, the first thing is, मैं औकात पे तो पहुंचा हूं अपनी. Okay, so to me, the execution gap happens because of the wrong behavior in the paper. To me, those behaviors are reading faster than what I can understand. Okay, the first thing is, as I said, trying to read very fast. Second, marking an answer even if I have not understood the passage or the question. Okay, and the third is, let's say, spending a lot of time in analyzing the question. That analysis paralysis comes into play. You spend so much time on trying to understand the question and the passage that you get completely confused and you end up marking some wrong answer, or you end up wasting so much time that you don't have time for the subsequent passages. To me, these are the three strongest reasons why students mess up with this paper. Either they read very fast, they go for wild guesses. Just because I've read a passage, I have to mark every answer, or they want to understand every passage and question right down to the last detail so that there's complete clarity. So when they're reading the passage, they're looking for complete 120% clarity. Does not happen ever. Okay? These are the three things I think we should be looking at.
Right. So once you identify what your problem is, then you can figure out what the solution is.
Yeah.
Just by like what GP is telling you, it's absolutely important. GP, one of the things that I have taken, let's say 100 RC passages. I've scored 100 RC passages. My score is like not improved, and then my solution cannot be I'm going to solve the next 100 RC passages. I think what is the guarantee that what's going to happen? So the issue is that if your score has not improved, which is okay, but which is fine. But what the question that you ask from each of the stuff that you solved, did you learn something? Did you go back and look at it? Did you look at what was the behavior? Did you read the passage once again? Okay, there is this concept in the passage that I don't understand. Did I go back and check and probably read the concept, add on to your knowledge? So tomorrow, let's say that if at all some passage revolves around that particular concept, I can look at it. For example, if I look at a CAT passage of 2019, which talks about British colonialism, it has got enlightenment rationalism, and that's what enlightenment came in that particular passage. Now that enlightenment story is in general what happened in the Europe has generally has a lot of impact, a lot many things. And when you look at a lot many passages, some aspect of it comes. So it's like, okay, I came across this new term. Let me go and look at this term again, read something more about that particular term, and then gain sort of these things. So doing that is important. Second, what GP was saying about this behavior, GP, I think these two things to me is a key thing. Either we are reading fast or we are reading too slow. Okay.
Yes.
Or in the sense,
Absolutely.
and then it's crazy that a lot of students come back and say that when I'm doing solving one passage, let's say I'm doing one particular passage here, I'm able to solve it, but in the mock I don't know what happens. I'm not able to solve it. And answering that question is where is execution gap. The gap is important. So eventually you have to figure out what is your pace of comprehension, reading and the pace of comprehension. That will only come if you do this analysis.
Yeah. So if you look at each one of these issues, okay, let's look at the reading fast. Okay, just to close this topic of reading fast, there's an optimum reading speed for you, and that optimum reading speed for you is the one at which you read in your school, in your college, in your work. That is the speed at which you work. Please stick to that speed. You don't have to look at speeding up. Why do you want to speed up? You want to speed up so that you can complete the section. Why do you want to speed up? Why do you want to complete the section? So that you can get a high score. But your experience, if it is telling you that speeding up is leading to larger number of errors, then speeding up is not working for you. Please change that habit. Okay. Don't worry if you don't complete the section. As I said, this is a section which has almost sufficient time to complete the section. But strictly speaking, if you look at 4 passages, each of the 4 passages will take you about, on an average, about 8 minutes or 9 minutes. Let me take 8 minutes, 32 minutes. Okay. And then we have those 8 questions of verbal. 1.5 minutes per question. We are talking about 12 minutes. Okay. So 32 plus 12 is 44. You are 10% short in terms of time. So if you are not able to complete, don't worry. The reason is in the previous slide. If you could just go back to the previous slide again. Yeah. Look at the 95 percentile or 97 percentile. Not talking about 99th percentile. You need only about 12 to 13 questions to be in this range. So with a 50% attempt in the paper, you can reach a 97 percentile. Why am I looking to get to complete the section? Let me assume you don't have sufficient time to do one passage. You are able to do 3 passages, 12 questions. You have sufficient time to do 8 questions of verbal, 20 questions. 20 questions can comfortably do. In fact, instead of 8 minutes, now you have about 9.5 minutes per passage. So if you can do 20 questions and get 12 or 13 of them right, you will be above 95 percentile. So what's the big deal about it is about the speed is what I want you to clear about. Leave passages if it has to, leave verbal questions, leave paragraphs, whatever you're uncomfortable with. Learn to leave questions is very, very critical if reading fast is leading to a poor score for you.
So to just to add, I think this year whether we don't know it's going to be 3 hour paper or 2 hour paper. In a 2 hour paper, like what GP was saying, that I need about 8 minutes. In some cases, I need about 9 minutes for dealing with
Yeah.
this passage. If it's 9 minutes per passage, then I can do solve about 3 passages, which means to fit this time of 40 minutes, I will probably need to look at each passage in about 7 minutes. So yes, there is that challenge, a little bit of challenge, or maybe figure out something in which maybe look at this at 30 minutes and spend 10 minutes. You have those challenges. But actually, when you look at this 1 hour paper, when you had 5 passages and 10 BA questions, now if I put the same logic of, let's say, 9 minutes for each of these 5 passages, 9 into 5 is 45 minutes. And let's look at the same logic of 10 questions and 1.5 minutes per question, that is 15 minutes. That is 60 minutes. This is awesome. Right. So for those of you who are saying that I don't like the 1 hour paper, 3 hour papers, too much to do. Actually, the challenge in the one hour paper is much lesser than the 40 minutes paper. And if you look at the passages that you see in the CAT, all these passages, even in 1 hour test or in the 40-minute section, are about 500 words. There is one more thing that I want to highlight, GP, here is that when you look at let's talk about passages. When you look at the time that you require, total time that you require is actually time to read the passage plus time to look at the questions. Now, time to
Correct.
look at the
Yeah.
questions between question number 1, question number 2, question number 3, question number 4 involves time to evaluate these answer choices in each of this. I think we put too much focusing on reading. I think this is about 500 words. I mean, you read in about 4 minutes
Yeah,
max.
and the interesting bit is almost all these students will already be reading at 250, 300 words per minute.
Correct.
The normal reading speed I'm talking about, not paper reading speed. I'm saying the normal reading speed will be in excess of 250 words per minute. So even if I say 200 words per minute, it is a 2.5 minute passage. Instead of 2.5 minutes, if you read very fast, you reduce that 2.5 minutes, or let's say 150 seconds, you reduce it to maybe 135 seconds, 130 seconds. You will say 15, 20 seconds, that's all. When you read very fast, you save maybe about 20 seconds in a passage. But those that reading of 20 seconds or saving of 20 seconds means you got 2 questions wrong. Don't try to save time by reading fast. And this
And,
is
and
something I tell students in quant, in DILR, and verbal every section. Yeah.
Another thing that is, I think the biggest time waste is actually happening with trying to evaluate these options. The
Yes.
options are what are creating the problem. Not even the question. People say that I have a problem with the inference question. You don't have a problem with inference question. What does inference mean? Something that is revealed by the passage. I have a
Yeah.
problem with what does critical reasoning means? Everything. This is an open book exam. Right? The passage is right there. It's about how the options are created, and then people get simply waste time. So if I can actually read a particular passage and then and leave questions, it is still fine. Other thing, GP, the problem with respect to the reading is actually not at all with respect to us. One element is, of course, vocabulary and other aspect. Other thing is about the topic that is given to them. So some people are has got a diverse habit of reading. So whatever is kind of the topic that is thrown at them, they can navigate those topic. Other thing that happens is that when the topic is given to you, which you're not comfortable, we have a problem. And it is never about speed. I think that and if you actually read it fast, then you'll get confusing option. If you read it very slow, then you can't watch a movie which is very slow, right? You lose track of it. So you have to
Dijo, in
uh,
fact, my theory is when you read fast, you spend more time in reading. The reason is instead of 2.5 minutes, let me assume you read the passage in 2 minutes flat. Great, you saved 30 seconds. Very good. Now you go to question one, you don't understand it. What will you do? You'll go back to the passage and read again. And when you read again, you are conscious of the fact that this is a second attempt. You will read it very fast again and you will not understand. But in the process, you would have wasted 1 minute definitely. And you will do this at least for 2 questions, if not more. So when you read fast and you go back to the passage for at least 2 questions, you have spent extra 2.5 minutes. So what was a 2.5 minute passage? You spend 2 minutes reading it and you spend another 2.5 minutes going back to the passage. So you have actually spent 4.5 to 5 minutes in reading the passage. So my theory is very simple. If instead of 2.5 minutes takes you 3 minutes to read the passage, I'm okay with it. I'm perfectly fine with you taking instead of 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes to read the passage, but 2.5 minutes becoming 2 minutes 15 seconds is not acceptable to me. Read at a pace which you're comfortable, because when you read it carefully, you understand the passage. Your chances of going back to the passage are negligible. If you understand the question, mark the answer. If you don't understand the question, leave it and move on to the next one. But don't go back to the passage.
So therefore, it is important when you go back after the mock test that you've taken, when you go back and look at these passages once again. So when you read the next time, you should read and figure out. Okay, now you create let's say a summary of paragraph one, paragraph two, paragraph three, and try to create what is known as a passage map, and reflect on what was your behavior. Look at each of this question and learn from each of the answered options as well. Okay, you would figure out yourself. Okay, why is answer option A wrong? Why is it B wrong? Why is C wrong? Why is it D right? And what made me mark the particular answer choice? And keep a note of these things. So every sort of mock test gives you new challenges, right? So, but as you move on with the test with the test, you see this sort of learning. I
Jijo, one last thing with respect to the previous one. So, and probably it will get covered along with the issues in the next slide. When you're analyzing the paper, the first thing you need to ask yourself in VARC is, which are the questions in which I wasted a lot of time? Which are my time wastage questions? Where does my time wastage happen? My time wastage happens, one, in reading the passage. I became unnecessarily slow in reading the passage. Second, my time wastage happens when I keep going back and forth to the passage and question, passage, question, back and forth. That's the question which I went back to the passage. That's where my time wastage is happening. Third time wastage is happening is when I was doing that fine tuning between two answer choices. I get confused between two choices. Okay, what is the answer? I keep looking at those questions, those choices again and again. It doesn't help at all in the paper, but yes, it should do it. So, which are the questions where you have done these? And these are possibly the questions in which you have spent a lot of time trying to identify what is the right answer, or the questions in which you went back to the passage. Those are the questions in the paper you should have left. That's the first thing. Second, why did you waste time? Did you waste time because you read it very fast? That means you need to slow down. Did you waste time because of some other reason? That reason needs to be addressed. Okay. So start by saying, where did I waste time? Why did I waste time? That is where your analysis starts with.
Perfect. And we have addressed these two things. So this is VA, like GP said, that VA is important. So whether it is paragraph jumble, odd sentence, or paragraph summary, you get 8 questions from here. 8 question in itself is like 75 percentile. So at least as a score, or maybe more than that, much more than that actually. So this is important. And for each one, for every mock test, you've got these paragraph jumble question, odd sentence question. There is an opportunity to learn. The question of whether it is 3 or 4 is actually irrelevant. You have to focus on the pace of comprehension. Eventually it is not possible maybe to solve all the 16 question. You may end up solving about 10 question. Now the decision that you want to do is whether I want to look at this 10 question from passage 1, passage 2, let's say passage 3, passage 4. It's also possible that I can look at all the 4 passages and leave out the 10 question that is spread across this passage, which means if I look at a question that is tough, I can move, or you will say that I'm going to pick up 3 passages and then pick it. So at this point in time, don't worry too much about whether I want to solve 3 or 4. I think at the end of the day, just your marks are going to come from question, not from passage, from the questions. So if you can nail those questions, whether it is 3 or 4 will be irrelevant.
In fact, I would say, Jijo, it is important for the student to understand that it is very, very important to leave questions. Wherever you are getting stuck, please leave it. After the paper, analyze what happened, what should you have done. But when you are attempting the paper, I am again repeating, please go back to the passages and see which are the questions you wasted time on. You will find the questions which you did not mark or which you got wrong, the amount of time spent on them was much higher. Okay. So which is why it is important not to worry about whether it is 3 passages or 4 passages. Just look at the question. Okay, I know how to answer. Great, I will solve it. I don't know how to answer. I have not understood the question or the passage. I am confused. Leave it and move on. Your confusion will not get resolved during the paper. It will get resolved after the paper. And that is what you need to do in the analysis.
Sometimes it has also happened. Let's say that I left a question. Okay, then I keep moving. If I leave question, eventually I'll have time to come back, right? And
Yeah.
and if you have towards the end, if you come back with a fresh look, suddenly you see a new look. When you are in a problem, then this happens every time. No, when we write something and we are
Mm,
checking errors in what you have written, and
mm,
we say that it's perfect. After send them, when you come back and look, oh, I made this error. So a fresh look is always good. So if you're confused, you're confused. Just move on to the next one. That's how you can actually look at questions. That's how you can actually solve more number of sort of passages. Just to illustrate this point here, GP. Okay, I have
yeah.
taken the prime cat 5 of us. I look at these 4 passages, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and this is basically talk about what percentage of the students, this is sort of
Attempted.
area graph, attempted, what percentage attempted the particular question. Out of those who attempted the question, how many percentage of the question students got the question correct. And if you just look at this particular passage number 2, there were
Mm,
2 questions which were kind of sort of easy, one question which was medium, and one question which is difficult. So GP, one of the things that people assume, that a passage is easy, passage is medium, passage is difficult, is sort of a irrelevant statement, because at the
yeah.
end of the day, it is about questions, and what makes a question difficult would be the options or the frame, how the question is framed. So if this is what the problem happens with people who solve 3 passages, GP, is that they select these 3 passages, then they start believing that
Mm.
because I already left 4 questions, I cannot leave anything else, and they end up fighting battles with these questions which are actually tough.
And Nijo, I have a basic problem with this philosophy that I will go into the paper thinking I will do 3 out of 4 passages, or two
Correct,
out of four, or 4 out of 4.
correct,
To me,
correct.
I don't know how many I will do. I'll go through the passage. I understand. I'll mark. I don't understand. I'll leave and move on. Okay, so to me, and the second thing which I've always seen, no, I'll seen in majority of the passages and papers, when the passage is difficult to read and understand, usually the questions are not that difficult.
Correct.
And when the passage is very, very superficial, very easy to understand, you can just breeze through the passage. The question will be a little confusing, or the choices will be a little confusing. So to me, that understanding of the passage and level of difficulty of the question are kind of inversely proportional.
Which is true. I mean, as a question setter is not testing your high level thinking order, right? If the
Yeah.
passage is difficult, if you look at any of this passage, 2007, 2008, 2009, going back there, some of the passages deadly to sort of read. But the question setter knows what they are testing. So yeah, that person understands. So what they do is they create question based on, let's say, broad understanding. If the passage is sort of easy to comprehend, then I can test you more in terms of, let's say, a little bit of in-depth understanding of things. So but what GP said is absolutely important. I am going to the paper not thinking it's 3, not thinking it's 4, because if I start thinking it's 3, then we start by, okay, that start having these thoughts. Oh, I have to solve all questions. You are reading a passage at the pace of your comprehension. You read the question carefully. You read the options. You evaluate the options. You get it. You mark the option. If if you're a little bit confused, you want to go back and refer to the passage. Go refer to the passage. Come back. I resolved the problem. I can mark it. But you're still confused. Even after going back, just skip and move to the next question. Just move on. I think
Second thing,
GP. I think
yeah,
one
sorry.
just people are just afraid to leave. This is this happens.
Because that's the way they have done their school and college, school exams, especially not so much of college, but school exams, they have always attempted everything. And that is what I say, if you have been good in studies, you have a problem, because you have not learned the art of leaving questions. If you are not good in school and studies, you have learned the art of leaving questions, or you have learned the art of choosing the right question to attempt. You need to know which battles to fight. Not every battle has to be fought, and not every battle will be won by you. Okay. Now, when I look at the passage which is difficult, that's another thing which I want to students to understand. For example, when I'm looking at this, to me, if I was taking the paper, I'll be very happy with passage number 1, even though I'll probably not get anything right, or leave 2 or 3 out of 4 questions. Okay, the reason is मेरे को मालूम है बाकी लोग mess up करेंगे. I have a habit of leaving questions. I don't understand, I leave. I read the passage once, whatever I understood, go and mark the answer based on that. Whether it is 1 out of 4 or 2 out of 4, it does not bother me. I'll go. I know others are going to waste time. And this is let's say, a fight in which my performance alone does not matter. My performance vis-a-vis your performance matters. So my suggestion to all students is when you come across a difficult passage, difficult question, confusing data, you should be very happy because it is very easy to leave such a thing. And others will not leave, you will gain.
GP, imagine this. No, imagine, for example, for this question, somebody decided to solve these three passages and then wanted to solve everything. These question additional
Yeah.
2 minutes was spent unnecessarily. This question
Yes.
additional 2 minutes was spent. This question additional
Yeah.
2 minutes was spent. Let's say that this question additional 1 minute spent. That is like 6-7 minutes. You could have might as well read this
You could
passage
have easily done the
and
first. Exactly. Okay.
so
So that art of leaving questions or the skill of leaving questions, whatever you want to call it, or if you want to look at it as a positive way, the art or skill of choosing the right questions you attempt is extremely important.
I
Please
think this is
be
what
happy leaving questions.
I think
Yes.
we have to look at how many well left happened.
Yes.
So which means during the paper, let's say let's say that I did not attempt question during paper, and after the paper, when I do the analysis, when I look at this question, I don't know. These are amazing. So I made absolutely amazing choice of not attempting certain question which I actually don't know even after analysis. This is
Yeah.
actually a well left scenario. Of course, then the opportunity to improve your competence as a learn the skills. But from a test perspective, this well left one is important. Therefore, these questions that you vendored and attempted in both these cases, okay, what is the time that you spend on this question? If you imagine getting negative 1 mark GP on a question after spending let's say 3 minutes, 4 minutes, it's crazy. Ah,
Yeah.
so
And you know, just to add to this, if I look at the last 8 questions here also, parajumbles, parasummary, odd statement. Okay. Now again, this has to be analyzed. Many people, just when they're doing the analysis, also forget about this part completely. These are 8 questions. This is 1/3 of your paper, whether you like it or not. You have to go through each one of them. Parajumbles, you may say I have a challenge, but you still need to go through the question. You need to go through the choices. Sorry, it does not have choices. You need to go through the statements and work out your own sequence and then compare with the original sequence. Please do every parajumble question of mocks a couple of times. Understand the logic because now you have to take learnings from each of these parajumble questions and take it into the next one. Similarly, odd statement people don't spend so much time. Parajumble odd statement, these 5 questions, I think you need to spend 3 to 4 minutes per question. These 5 questions are going to take you 20 to 25 minutes to understand how to do it because at this stage, when CAT is about 5-6 months away from you, you have time to go through it, understand, get the conceptual clarity so that by the time you hit CAT, you are able to get out of these 2 or 3 out of 5 right. Okay, so please don't ignore this much. I am not too worried about parasummary because parasummary many people will still analyze, but I find most students ignoring odd statement significantly, and majority students will not even worry about parajumbles. Please get in the habit of analyzing
so
these two question types also.
there is other thing very interesting here. I think this I've seen across the test. There is no
Mhm.
negative marking for these two
Yeah.
things. Yet
Mhm.
I know that people have not even odds and ends about marking one choices. Okay, so that doesn't even happen. Second of
Yeah,
all, I think a lot of people would have made a guess. An accuracy of 40 percentage is in with respect to reading comprehension is actually an
it's a
accuracy
very
of
good
about
accuracy.
very accurate accuracy because many people are going to take the harm
Mhm.
anything about 34 percentage. So even if let's say there are all these reds that is happening, the fact that people are able to mark anything about let's say anything close to about 30 percentage here means that that question crackable. So here we have got two, here we can pick one, here we can pick one, we have got your four out.
Yeah.
So like what GP said, post your test, it is absolutely important that you look at each of this question first, figure out your process, figure out how you want to look at odd sentence, and that kind of is important. Yeah. So which brings us to GP must do after paper. What should they do? What are the process? First
Okay.
thing what they should do. Let's start from the thing.
First
GP.
thing I think, yeah, first thing I think everyone will first check the scores. Which question right, which question wrong, next score, happy, unhappy, do that first. Get rid of that, get over that hump first. Okay. Now that you have seen this, next step is where first thing I will also say, or rather in this case, the second step would be where did I waste time? Okay. Where did time wastage happen? Okay. Which passages and which questions? If it happened in a passage, Why? Which are the questions I wasted time in? Why? Okay. Okay. Did I go back to the passage? By going back to the passage, was I able to get understanding? Usually the answer will be no. Then why do I go back to the passage? Okay. So that is what you need to look at. Why did I waste time? You did where and why, and both look at both the passage as well as the question. Along with this, the other 2A, I would say, which are the questions I should not have attempted? And when I say which are the questions I should not have attempted, I don't mean marked an answer. To me, you spent 2.5 minutes and left the question, you have already attempted it. The only sensible thing you have done is instead of getting a -1, you will get a 0. Okay. So question I should not have attempted have to be clearly identified in the paper. Okay. After the paper, you have to say, okay, what could have I, the 2B part is, what could have I done in the paper which would have ensured a greater understanding and correct answers? What could I have done to get more correct answers in the paper? And this again, look at passage by passage or question by question. What should I have done in this passage? Maybe I read it very slow, got confused, trying to get 100% clarity and hence did not have sufficient time. Maybe I read it very fast, did not understand, had to keep going back and forth. Okay. Now, all what this means is the first thing you need to do is before where did I waste time would be do the passage again. Yeah. Try to this, do the passage again without worrying about time. Get the concept of time out of your mind. Redo the passage. Don't worry about time. That does not mean you slow down or you again, when you're reading the passage, read at your pace of reading, whatever is your comfortable speed. Now you will know what your actual Lockhart score is. Okay. And then everything else follows. Okay. So many times I see students jumping straight to 2A, 2B, 2C without reading the passage. You have to redo the passage. Only then you will know what you did right or what you did wrong. Okay. One more thing out here is, which Dijo, probably I'm sure you hear this question very, very often. I get confused between two choices. I'm able to eliminate two choices. I get confused between the two. What should I do? Okay. If you're confused, my answer would be leave it. Whether you're confused between 2 or 4 does not matter. The fact is you still don't know what the answer is. So if you're confused between two choices, I would say you leave it. But now I will ask you another question. Why were you confused between two choices? And which is what gets you back to 2B. If I'm confused between two choices, what was the reason? Okay. Why was I not able to eliminate? Okay. So the last thing in 2C I would add here is look at those words which can help you eliminate the choices. What is it which should have told me that choice 1 is wrong, choice 3 is wrong, choice 4 is wrong? What was there in that option which should have told me that is wrong? So elimination, the art of again eliminating choices, something which needs to be inculcated, and it becomes stronger when you look at the choices and start analyzing, start doing it during the analysis. Yes, the rotten words in choices which help you eliminate the choice. Eliminate. Okay.
So here, GP, these are all these things. What GP is saying, it's also very important. This is about your execution, which means you're looking at your behavior, filling our execution gap, which means I already have certain capabilities that I have. At least I should execute those capabilities in the test before I start looking at new stuff. I already have. I'm here. I've got this capability, and then it is only after this GP is I actually go to the third step, which means to look at explanations.
Yes.
Look at explanation. Look at explanations, video solutions, etc. Should be done after this. So that is when you are. I think the big problem, GP, is people start from here and jump here. Okay.
Yes. The entire process in the middle gets short circuited.
I think explanate. Okay, very important in verbal. Explanation only explains what the answer is, and most of the time we don't even agree to some of them. Okay, we are going, "Oh, yeah, okay, what explanation this is?" Explanation never tells you what your problem is. Only you can figure out what your problem is. If I don't answer this question, if I don't redo all the question once again, all of them now, towards the end, we may not have enough time to do all this now in July. This is important. I answer this very important question. Did I waste time? If I said, where did I waste time? Why did I waste time? What are the decisions that I made which are wrong decisions? Should not have attempted. Okay. What are the possible things I should have probably got correct? Are there things that I can learn from every single thing? So, okay, is there a better way to solve this question? I should do every single thing without even looking at the solutions and solution, jumping to the solution. I think the checking score, crying, solution, explanation. This is what everybody does. Okay, and missing out on all the in between activities, GP, and therefore your mock becomes a learning tool. When you do this, when you do this, when you go back and check, and you take the new test, you do the same thing again, and naturally you wonder why your score has not improved. Why your score has not improved? Because you never understood the problem. Right. So, you're right.
There's one thing which I want students to be cautious of, and here possibly I'm referring to those students who have a good reading habit. There are many students who, right since their childhood, have been reading regularly. Okay, I'm not talking about others. Now, what happens is when you have a good reading habit, you intuitively are able to pick up the right answer because that's the way you have developed. Right since childhood, I was reading, so I did not need any reading technique. My reading technique got developed when I took CAT. Intuitively, I knew this is the answer, and I would mark the answer. Now, what happens is many of these students who have good reading habit, when it comes to CAT, suddenly change their reading style. Now they want to be absolutely clear about every question, every passage. They want complete clarity, and hence they start analyzing everything and start giving the wrong answer. If you have a good reading habit, don't look at any technique. Just do it the way you read a passage, a novel, an article, a newspaper, your college work stuff. Just do it that way. What comes intuitively to you will be the right answer. I'm not saying you'll be 100% right. No one is 100% right. But if you have a good reading habit, go by intuition. Let it define what the answer is. Don't make it a huge thing. Ki cat hai, so I have to change it. Same thing. No, you don't have to.
Right, which is at the end of the day, what does intuition mean? I think intuition is when I read the passage, your brain is already processed information. Look at a question, they are feeding information saying that okay, this is what the answer is. You pick and move on. So at the end of the day, GP, you're absolutely right. I think somebody with good, very good reading habit, already things are working, and you should pick on strengthening what you already have rather than changing it completely and doing something very different. You have to build on to things that you already have. So you can still do those analysis, but ensure that you're not changing your style completely, but building on to what you already have. And maybe it's a question of okay, is there a process of looking at paragraph jumble? Is there a process of looking at odd sentence? Is there a process of, let's say that you might have an issue reading this kind of topics? Maybe you can work on certain things but build on to what you already have, which okay, gets it to let's say GP. Let's look at, we are
Mhm.
just looking at next 4 weeks. Okay, huh?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
what do you think? Let's put a set of tasks from your end. What should people do
So,
for
so
this?
Gija, I would say step one should be we are already at time of 6, I think. Okay,
Correct.
and most of the students I am presuming would have taken 2 or maybe 3 mocks. First task is go through these mocks again.
So
If
I
you have
think you're saying that
already analyzed those papers, great. If you have not analyzed those past papers, you have done 2 out of 6 or 3 out of 6, does not matter. Whatever it, at least do that detailed analysis of those 2 mocks first. Okay, so analyze the old 2 mocks or 3 mocks, whatever you have done. I don't think anyone has done 6 out of 6. Average appears to be closer to 3, so I'm looking at 2 to 3 mocks. Okay, so that you know what are the execution mistakes you're committing, so that when you take the next mock, you will not make those mistakes. So start. You already have a base. Analyze those papers, understand your execution mistakes, and then yes, 1 mock a week is essential for you. Okay.
right. So I think the starting point now would be you've already taken it. Let's go back, take one mock test, do the execution, understand what the mistake is. Then you know what are the things that you can look at. Okay. GP, I'm going to add
Mhm.
one every week. Let's say first week, second week, third week. I think I'm going
Yeah,
to add paragraph jumble, odd
very important.
sentence, paragraph jumbles, odd sentence, because paragraph summary can be done along with reading comprehension.
Reading
One,
comprehension.
or you may even say that okay, 2 weeks I'm going to nail paragraph jumble, 2 weeks I'm going to look at odd sentence. So I maybe
I'll possibly not make it a weekly thing. I'll say a daily thing. For
That's what
example,
it's.
nothing.
Uh,
So okay.
I'm just saying that the task is for that week is paragraph jumble. I have to nail. So
Okay,
let's assume.
that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay. So let's say this week, Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday, every day I will do 5 parajumbles. Even if I do only 5 parajumbles, I have done 30 parajumbles in 6 days. I have understood the process. Now I can definitely start implementing it. And 5 is not a big number. You can easily go up to 8 to 10 parajumbles every day if you want to. But I think let's start small and implement it and complete it rather than thinking big and not doing anything.
So these paragraph jumble that you're doing can source from the past CAT papers.
Yes.
Uh,
The aspiration account.
aspiration account. Plus, I think that
Yes.
even in the mocks that you've taken, I'm sure that.
In the mocks, in your books, there are ample number of parajumbles and odd statement.
Yeah. So,
Now there's one call you need to take whether you want to start with odd statement or parajumbles.
okay.
To me, both of them are the same thing. But some students are more comfortable with odd statement, then start with odd statement. If you're more comfortable with parajumble, you can start. All I'm saying is whatever comes naturally to you, what will get accomplished faster is what you could start with. Okay. Someone could take exactly the opposite view. Now, what is difficult for me, I'll do it first. I'm completely fine. I'm saying just be clear about how you want to go about and be strict with yourself. Make sure you implement to the T. 1 week of parajumbles means 1 week of parajumbles. I will definitely do every day 5-6 questions, analyze each one of them, understand where I got wrong. End of the week, I'll have done the 30. Next day, I'll go through all 30, identify what mistakes I've committed, and then I'll see if I can implement it in the paper.
Right. So the please understand this number is one thing, but what is absolutely important to evaluate at the end of it, what is the objective that you want to meet? That I would want to have a reasonably good accuracy. So if somebody gives me 3 questions, 1 to मैं करूँगा, 2 on a good day, 3 on an awesome day. Okay, so that is where you have to reach, and the same case with the odd sentence question. Second, of course, is because if I don't put this, I'm never doing this. And we will worry only about reading comprehension. The second task is, of course, to solve RC passages, solve RC passages on a weekly basis. And after every RC passage that is solved, you do the analysis as there. Okay. So you can put whatever number that you want to put. I think more important, more than the quantity, it's the quality of stuff that you do. You're going back and reading the question, keep a note of certain passages that you came across, words. Please know that I need to go back to those words, create a book with maybe you came across new words from everything you're writing those things down. uh, Learning, capture your learning. I think you should have a note where you're capturing your learning. So every analysis that GP said with respect to mock, do every analysis on every single question that you're doing. GP, with respect to reading, general reading, weekly.
I think general reading it can continue the way it is, and you have given a list of websites that students should be looking at. I think ANSs, etc. Let them just do that on a daily basis. I'll say about half an hour of daily reading should be good enough. If you have time, you can go to 1 hour and perfectly fine with that. But 30 to 60 minutes, I think, is reasonably high.
Yeah. So some daily reading. So there is Aeon Assist. Aeon Assist has got Aeon Ideas, which is you can Google that. That has got about 1,000 to 1,500 word passages. Aeon Essays has got passages which is 3,500 on diverse topic, which is good. These are free. JSTOR Daily is another site that I'll recommend. JSTOR is Journal Storage, which is a site which is journals, but JSTOR Daily has got a lot of good articles, short ones. I think pick these, get your diverse thing, and make your
And,
life absolutely simple. So at the end of
and
this 4 week, sorry, GP, you're saying
yeah,
something.
I was just about to say when you read these articles and passages which don't have questions at the end, you have a task with you. Once you read this article, after the article, can you write a 3-line summary of that article to tell yourself that you have understood something out of it? Because many times when there's nothing to do after the passage, you will not focus as much. So what I want you to do is after reading the passage, write a summary, a 2-line, 3-line, 1-line, whatever. Okay. So in a way, can you give me the main idea or the summary of the passage or the article after you've read it? Because that will tell you whether you have understood the passage or not. If after reading the passage you can't write even a couple of lines, that means you have not understood the passage. Your reading process is faulty.
Right. So the key is, so you're taking mock every week. You're analyzing the mock in the subsequent week. You're learning from it. You have got a task ahead in terms of ensuring that you put sufficient number of learning from paragraph, jumble, odd sentence, and you're solving RCs. Let me probably to help you with this, with respect to solving RCs and paragraph jumble, you can have multiple sort of sources. One of the things that I will strongly recommend, that one week pick up a set of CAT past year papers 2021. Let's say that in week number in let's say next 4 weeks, I want to ensure that in the entire 4 weeks put together, I will completely look at 2021 and 2020 passages, which is got what we are looking at three papers.
Yeah.
The three papers, each paper has got four passages. We have got 12 RC passages. Sorry, each has got what? Three
Yeah.
papers. Correct, no,
4 into
forever.
460.
Sorry. So there are three papers here, three papers here. Okay, so total number of six papers, six into four passages. We have got 24 passages, right? So with 24 RC passages, we have got 6 into 8, that is 48 VA questions. So you've got 48 VA questions, 24 RC passages. Let's say I have to look at six RC passages every week, and then 24 questions. So ensure that in the next 4 weeks, one of the definite two sources are very absolutely crucial. One source that you're looking at is your mock. Another source that you're looking at is your CAT. And then subsequent to that, add more relevant sources for your stuff, and that should be good enough,
And,
GP, I
and
think.
and one last thing with respect to this is, this plan is not cast in stone. No one is saying you have to definitely do these 20 and 21 passage in this one in these 4 weeks itself. If your time availability is lesser because of certain reasons, take a lower target. You have
Correct.
6 months, you take a lower target, but whatever you target you take, to take a reasonable target and complete it rather than taking an outlandish target and then saying, oh shit, I've done only 25% of what I want to. You took a
Correct.
long target. Okay.
So this is at the end of the day, you're saying that okay, fine. What I've got lot many stuff to do. There are must do things. Ensure that instead of let's say I can't do all this. Okay, so in the July I'm just looking at 2021. June I look at the August I
Yeah.
probably look at 2020, or
Yeah.
even you say that okay July enter. So that is also fine. I think I don't have time to look at 20 pages. It's also fine. But come what may, you have to ensure that the task of paragraph jumble and odd sentence is something that you're doing. You may even say that first 2 weeks I'm just looking at paragraphs jumble, next 2 weeks odd sentence, or first 2 weeks odd sentence, next 2 weeks, what makes sense to you. But if you don't write these tasks down, and looking at the time that you have to write these tasks down. Only if you write these tasks down, it's going to work. I would also be happy to check out your tasks. You can put your tasks, let's say monthly tasks, the list of activity that you want to do on the on the comment box. Me and GP will have a look at the task and give our takeaway or our advice on it. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I guess Gijo, that completes the session. Anything else you want to add to what we have discussed?
Nothing. I think at the end of the day, keep everything simple. Keep your preparation simple. Keep your test taking simple. Keep it absolutely simple. Plan simple. Simple things are the best way to deal with stuff. Not make anything complicated. Don't read complicated in passion. Don't evaluate in complicated. Keep everything simple. And if you do that, I think you will be able to look at this. And one last thing is, irrespective of whatever is your score, ups and down in the score, don't keep whining, just focus on the process. So eventually whatever the fluctuation that happened, it is moving in a particular direction. The short fluctuation that you see is not something, but the fluctuation is directed towards sort of moving average that goes high. So just stick to the process, what I would say, GP.
And just to close the session, before that, a couple of last minute words from me. Isme out here. Uh, Please remember that you have to take targets which are achievable and reasonable. Don't take outlandish targets. That's the first thing. When you're attempting the paper, learn to leave questions. After the paper, learn to analyze so that in future you will not have to leave questions. Okay? These are the two or three things. If you do, you will definitely do well in this paper. And so with that, we'll close the session on VRC. Next, we'll meet on the same issue with DILR. We'll see how we should be analyzing a DILR section. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much, Gijo. All the best.